I would rather you try to put it in words, just like you were saying.
Like, as the character seems to be, but changes due to experiences and relationships with other people and childhood relationships.
I'm about to make a new rule. I'm going to stop you and not let you talk if you're not speaking with a public speaking voice. I'm not going to ask you to repeat again. You said first impressions, and then you started changing towards change over time. I said say more about first impressions. You're on to something here.
Introduction.
Who can keep going until we make this a really like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right.
How other characters think about them, or like they scared of them.
Thank you for playing. Yes, Nora?
Like maybe this may be with a character portrayal of how the author writes. Maybe like for example, like Piggy, how he's written a little helpless, but like really underneath he might not be helpless.
Okay, I want to thank you for playing too. Notice when you watch this seminar, you're going to hear my voice, but you're not going to hear yours because you don't know how to speak strongly. That's my whole point when I say I'm going to like start going, no, silence, until you know how to actually turn up your own volume, because it's something that drives people crazy, and you can learn it. Let's talk about the writer here. You're all talking about the story, the writer, and character. Thank you.
Like how the writer wants you to think of the character when you first read about him or her.
First impressions, and how does the writer do that? How does the writer make us think about the character and interpret the character? Huh? Good. And the word for that, who knows it? Characterization. Notice who characterizes the writer. How does a writer characterize a character, any character? What choices does the writer have to make when introducing a character? Thanks, Zach. Louder. Louder.
Physical appearance.
That sounds like yelling though. Can you just do it with a, maybe you can side up more.
Physical appearance.
That's pretty good. Okay, so good. So, description. Physical. What else? Yes, Alexis. I'm sorry. Yes, Nadia.
Their inner thinking.
See, she's got a stronger voice than you. Their inner thinking. Okay, so how does a writer show us their inner thinking? Notice we're talking about writing. You're thinking.
Whenever like.
She's got so far the best voice in this class. Go.
Whenever the person like if it's saying like I thought they were nice or like whenever they're writing as in like
First person. Yeah. Okay. Is this? But this is not a first person. So how does a? Okay. So let's just put like inner.
Dialogue.
But it's not dialogue, is it? Like Piggy was pleased when he thought that that Ralph was meant it as a compliment or whatever it was. There was one thing. Laughed his name. Yeah, but it wasn't that one because he was actually offended and like, no, please don't do that. I'm trying to think of the writer, the literary term for it. But until I do, let's just get the idea in our head. So, physical inner thoughts, and there's much more. And when you read it on that level, it gets really interesting. This guy is so good, right? I was not excited about reading Lord of the Flies. I thought we were going to be stupid. I'm loving it. Yeah.
Flashbacks and flash forwards. Because Piggy always talks about his aunt.
Okay. All right. So the sort of biographical details. Alex?
His actions.
He's got a strong voice too. His actions. Colin, yours is pretty good, not great. His actions. Okay, good. Oh, what they do. Actions. The first thing you see him do. The first 3 pages where you see this character, the things that they do in this, there are interesting things happening here. And now going back to conflicts and Alice talking about conflicts, the way these characters act, the things they do towards each other, physically and otherwise. Yes?
I was going to say that this action involves speaking as well.
Dialogue. this man, I'm telling you, what's his name? William Golding, is that his name? He has been impressive. He has been so conscious of every single detail. He's blowing me away. I love this novel already. I'm only on page like 20. Yep.
The tone of his voice, like the way, like Piggy tends to be like more slangy, I guess, whereas Ralph tries to be a little bit more, I don't know. Yeah, sophisticated.
I'll just put verbal style, the way they talk, because all sorts of things we learn from it. Again, show, don't tell. He's not telling us, what is he telling us about Piggy by making Piggy go, them are good? We hear him saying things with bad grammar, right?
Not as educated.
He's not as educated, right? A bad writer would go, Piggy was uneducated. A good writer goes, how about showing Piggy's uneducated? Then some fruit over there, whatever, right? Quote. And you're like, he's not educated. He showed me that through dialogue. Okay, Lisa.
Would inner thoughts count as psychology, sort of? Type?
Yeah. And I put psychology. Oh, yeah, and so, yeah. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so we've done a lot on characterization. We've done setting. We've done sort of good guy, bad guy. What about plot? Again, remind me, what is the Freytag's triangle? Stop. Ask yourself, if you don't know this, you should. Remember Big Boy. We talked about Freytag's triangle, the plot thing. What is our language? We're talking about exposition now. I want to include in this conversation what we think the conflicts are going to be, and then after conflict, what are the next levels until a story is over? Plot. I'll give you the first one, exposition, and then not rising action. Inciting incident. What is the inciting incident incite? What incited?
The climax?
No.
They're all then
Conflict?
What does the word to incite mean? You should have asked me that, Ms.
Skip
Brill.
start.
To start. So what is the thing that starts what?
Conflict?
Conflict. Look, I want to go pee is not a story. He peed, and he came back to the table and had Thanksgiving lunch. An incident incited the story when that exposition, I'm this dorky guy in Chicago, and I went to see some friends, and I said, I'm going to go pee. What's the inciting incident that starts the conflict?
He needs to go to the
Oh, there's a big turd there, and I can't, right? And so, now there's a conflict. I want to make this big turd go away so I can pee. The turd in the toilet was the inciting incident that incited the plot. So, let's talk about, are we seeing inciting incidents in chapter 1? And then, what conflicts are they setting up? And then how is it going to be resolved? And what complications do you think? So, okay, complications? The conflict was make the damn toilet go away. The complication? Well, I flushed it. And it didn't, the turd. The first complication, I flushed it. It didn't work. Still, the conflict is there. So the second thing I tried to do to resolve this conflict, we've got a conflict brewing in this, don't we? Don't you see it in this story? Your story, Lord of the Flies? So that's enough for today, is it? Is there anything else I need to put in here? Plot, setting, character. Oh, yeah. Yes, there is. Writers, tell me. Tell me that you know that this is not enough. What other things are happening in this story that might be interesting things to write a paper about? How the writer does things. We're talking about writers. We're not talking about stories, just stories. That's elementary.
Maybe the use of symbolism.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. There are quite a few symbols already. We talked about one last time. What else? There's one other thing. And thank you. Yes, themes. Themes. Like, what is this about? We've said power, but that's not a theme. That's a topic. Power is fill in the blanks. That's a theme. A statement about a topic. So themes. We could put language in here. You know, certain metaphors, and there are some, by the way, certain images, and there are some, by the way, there are some images that have been repeating that I am like going, oh, that's good. He's repeating these images. Do you know what repeated images are called in literary terms? You've got your notebooks open. I want this all down there. Because I want you to be in 10th grade, not making a teacher ask this question. Why the hell don't they know these basic literary terms? We're talking about when a writer uses the same image over and over. And repetition is a good guess, but we are educated, we're scholars, and we have a word for when writers on purpose, not repetition of the same word, but the same image. On page 9, on page 23, on page 75, over and over and over, you see them coming back to this image. And it's not a symbol, but it is a motif. A motif. M-O-T-I-F. And the plural of that is, unfortunately, no, let's just pluralize it as motifs. We'll leave that word. Could be motives, and that would just confuse it. Meat force, I like that. That's my best typo today. Metaphors was meat fours. Somebody said the word MILF in the last class. I just want to announce that. Okay. Kids these days. What else? Which made me think of meat fours. I don't know what. Because, okay, anyway. So I guess that's enough. Language, metaphors, images, motifs. All right. Say. Now we've got our little list of things to. Oh, hell on the damnation. Yeah, that works. Your eyes are better than mine. You can do it. I just figured out what your homework is. Let me remind myself. It'll be fun. Okay. Have we done MIT's most interesting things?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go back to most interesting things with a little difference. I'm going to have like 5 of you start it, and everybody else, 5 at a time, start it. 5 MITs. Everybody else reads those 5, and then they answer the one that they thought was most interesting or they want to answer, so that we have actually got sort of like dialogue scope, instead of everybody writing alone. And then the next time, 5 other people will rise. And so we'll cycle through every 4 classes. A different set of people will start the conversation. Let us go then, you and I. Okay, so the time is 2:06. That gives us 50. Yes?
Do we have to do something every single seminar? Like
Do we have to what?
we have to say I thought every single seminar.
I want to hear your thoughts. You always want to be able to contribute to a seminar.
Like for what if we don't really listen? Just to
There's never anything wrong with asking questions. Thank you for asking. What if you don't have anything to say? You are listening. The seminar's exemplary column has this: good balance of speaking and listening. Those who speak too much are imbalanced. They're speaking too much. Speaking and listening, I'm talking too much, is out of balance. Not saying anything is also out of balance. So, how does one say something when they don't have anything to say? By listening to what others say and responding. That's interesting. That made me think of. Suddenly you have an idea. Right? So there's never an excuse, especially unless I'm not listening, to have nothing to say in a conversation. Your semester exam, by the way, will be a shared inquiry in which you do exactly this, 10 inside, 10 outside, and it's worth 10% of your semester grade. So, any other questions before we start? Did I tell you what you call measured? Who blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
All right, so I just did that so that the clock would tick down to a manageable. All right, so we got 50 minutes, 25 minutes. Yeah, it's on.
That's it.
It's good on. Is anybody going to do impromptu in this class? Tryouts today after school. Tryouts today after school.
Tryouts?
I mean, not tryouts. Informational meeting. And I need to know your name. Hell and damnation. If you know that you're interested in doing it, just tell me your name and I'll send you an email. You're welcome to come after school, but if you can't, you're still included in this list because the email is, these are the days that I'm available for practice. Who's interested? Okay. Alice? Megan? Coney's?
Oh wait.
Nadia? That's
Wait,
Zaina?
Wait, I have a question. Can I put my name down but see what it comes down to?
Yeah.
We can do it on Monday.
Was that Coney's?
Yeah.
Megan, we can do it on Monday. But there's no just the practice afternoon.
Am I leaving anybody out? Someone know?
That's today.
I can't make that.
Okay, you can't make it. That's okay. I'm gonna send you a link to a document where you just put your name in, the times that you're available, Monday, Tuesday through Friday, and that will help us decide what our meeting date.
No Monday?
Practice content. Monday from 4:30 to 6. I've got meetings on Mondays until
You're
4:30.
probably gonna kill me for like the last year and you see my semester and everything have dance rehearsal every single day.
I know.
I know. Well, and so there will be tryouts at a certain day, and it will be after. I don't know. You don't have to come every single time because at the end of the day, if a person walks in out of nowhere and they've never even come to a single practice, but they're like, okay, today's our tryout. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, but I've never been here. I'm like, I don't care. Go. And if they go and they knock it out of the park, they're on the team. Right? This is about talent. Right? And so, that's no big. Okay. And fun. That's because I thought of my example of muffin as one word that you might see and have to give a speech on, and I was giving an example to my other classes, and I said, muffin. Stud muffin. Have you ever known a stud muffin? A guy so hot you just want to cover him with butter and then honey on top?
Yeah.
I knew a stud muffin like that, right? Because you don't know what you're going to say, right? And the word was muffin. Okay, so that's why fun was an afterthought, because I just thought about my covering up a muffin with butter and honey, because he was a stud muffin.
But wouldn't that be inappropriate and you would be kicked out?
No, because you didn't use the F-bomb. You can go off poetically, deeply, philosophically, or you can be absolutely silly and crazy. That's why I was like, Alex, you're perfect for the silly and crazy side.
Do you think if he did his singing thing, they would?
Alex's first speech, that's why I was like, dude, yeah. It's the showstopper. It's always the last event at cultural convention because it's the most entertaining. They want fun and humor, as well as serious and such. Okay, we're done. Now, group 1, you have until. $37 after. 37 after. Okay, so you've got a lot of things to talk about there. You take it wherever you want to go. Go.
Okay, so we're part of the book where they follow the other boys. He's blown the shell. Would you say the shell is some kind of symbolism to what's going to happen in the future?
I think definitely because like
Stop. Ask your question over. I'm going to start enforcing it. That can't hear you. We're going to have a silent movie on here.
Do you think the shell that he used is some kind of symbolism that will relate to the future of the book?
Absolutely, Jamie. I do think so because during this chapter or during the conclusion of this chapter, I think the conch shell has definitely become one of the main symbols because when he calls the boys in for the meeting and when he puts the conch shell up, everybody is quiet. So I think it resembles a type of like whoever has the conch you have to respect no matter who they are or what they have done. You have to respect them. So
Leading on to that, I think that in like the conch, it like developed a little bit more kind of since there's more boys, there's more arguing over power in the story. So or in the first chapter, I thought. So now it's not really between Ralph and Peggy. Now it's between all the other boys of who gets power.
Well,
I feel.
I-
Oh, sorry.
I feel that the conch is going to be like a motif later.
Speak up, woman.
I feel that the conch is going to be a motif later because it keeps reappearing. Like he's holding up the conch to silence them, like they said, and then he's also using it to summon them to a certain place to meet. So I feel like it's going to keep being repeated as a symbol of power, and it's also really like it's also sort of like a symbol not only in like for the reader but for the boys themselves because it's to them it's whoever has the conch should be the leader, and then it might be like later that there's gonna be a huge amount of conflict over who gets to have the shell.
I feel as,
No, you go ahead.
I feel as the main conflict over the conch will be between Jack Gisman and Ralph because of their two dominant personalities over all the other boys there. So, yeah.
I definitely agree with you, Nadia, because
Louder.
I definitely agree with you, Nadia, because kind of in the middle of the chapter, you can see that Ralph and Jack have a little conflict when they give each other a little smirk, and you can see that when they're also deciding who's chief. So not everyone votes for Jack, but everyone votes for Ralph, and I think Jack is gonna become a little bit jealous, and you can already see that later on in the chapter.
So there was a vote, and Ralph won, and Jack didn't.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get that far yet. Okay. So it starts with vote. Okay. Excellent conversation. Keep going.
Okay. Well, I think that they're gonna get violent because it's like an island full of boys and they're like fighting over who gets to be in charge, and it's not just gonna be like verbal fighting. It's gonna go into like fist fighting. Yeah,
And I think that it's also
Wait a minute. Were you finished before he said? You're so
Yeah.
rude. Okay. He interrupted you.
Sorry, Alex.
scared me.
Oh, don't be such a drama queen. So, Allison, what did you say? What was your point?
Oh, yeah, that it's gonna get physical.
You said it was the conflict something. The point before you it starts with a vote, and you said.
I said I think that since it's an island of boys, they're gonna start like getting like violent.
Okay, and the only boys. That's a very insightful. Noticing what's not happening, what's not there, what the author hasn't put there. That's really perceptive. Yeah, good. All right, so.
I think I agree with you with how to become physical, but I think that Jack is also a little more smarter than Ralph, and maybe he'll somehow be able to like pay off the people that are like on Ralph's team or somehow sabotage him in the future. I don't think Jack is like. I think Jack's a lot smarter than to just like punch Ralph. I think he'd actually somehow find a way to like destroy Ralph, but also make himself like guarantee a spot in like being able to control people.
Why do you think that Jack is smarter than Ralph?
I don't know. I just feel like everybody's smarter than Ralph.
Except for Piggy.
Okay, has there been? I haven't met Jack yet. Has there been evidence of Jack being intelligent, Jamie? Because you always want to back up your sort of claim with some sort of
Well,
detail.
like I guess all the other he was like another runner up to become leader, and I think that's one of the evidences because if the boys were also okay with Jack being leader, then there must be something somehow makes him accountable to become a leader.
Well, also he's like the leader of the choir, right? So he obviously has that leadership mentality and that leadership, I think, desire to be the best, maybe, and to be in control of everyone.
Okay, so that's Merriweather. He was just called Merriweather.
Meridu.
Meridu, whatever.
That's
Yeah,
his
I read
name.
it, just, out during a
Yeah.
5-minute break of it. So that Meridu is Jack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Ralph is really cocky too. So that might get him beat up. Or killed.
So I agree with Alice when she mentioned earlier that the conch is like a source of power, but I also think it's like a source of hope, and that's maybe why a lot of the boys were fighting over the leadership role, because they want that little bit of control that they still have left, because ever since the crash they've been confused, they've been lost, they don't know if they're going to be rescued, and I think that with the conch there's that little light at the end of the tunnel that things might get better, and that if they lead them, that maybe they'll have a better chance of surviving.
going back to what you guys commented about Jack earlier, I feel like the choir in the book, it says that they sort of just raised their hands because he was their leader. So
Speak up, woman.
they had to raise their hands. So I feel like this is sort of an example of the power that obligation or like a sense of duty can really have an effect on a person, because the choir obviously wasn't completely willing to vote for him, but did so because they're part of the choir. He's like the best person, so they should vote for him. So even though he didn't win, he still gets to control the choir, which I feel like that's really important to the story. Because now the boys group is sort of split into the people who voted for Ralph and then like the choir boys.
Yeah, but I feel like that also shows what kind of leadership Jack has. He's like more of a complete you must listen to me leadership, rather than like how Ralph is more like people kind of like naturally followed him. Jack is just like, oh, I'm so much better than you guys better listen to me. I also feel like Jack is gonna get really violent because he has a knife and he was like the first one who's willing to like stab the pig. So I think he's gonna be,
Going back to what Jamie said earlier,
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Stab the pig?
Oh,
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
baby. It was a baby pig who was
It's a little
stuck.
It was at the end of the chapter.
So I missed a pig.
No,
Wait, has a pig been stabbed?
no.
No.
They let it away.
They let it go away.
That's
Okay, thank
like-
you, thank you. All right. So Jack has a knife. And what was the other point you made about him, Alice? Chloe, sorry.
he's like more of a totalitarian leader.
Okay.
What?
Because he's the choir leader and he.
Dictatorship person.
Okay. And dictatorial. Okay.
Yeah, and then like going back to what Jamie said
Speak up, woman.
earlier.
Speak up, woman.
Okay. Going back to what Jamie said earlier, I also think Jack will somehow use his power to overthrow Ralph as the leader, because Jack obviously has more experience in leading a group since he's the leader of the choir, and I think most of the boys voted for Ralph because of his appearance. So yeah, he's not like a real leader, but he seems like one, so they voted for him. So I feel like Jack would be a better, not a better leader maybe, but like a more powerful leader, and they would be more obligated to like follow him.
But I feel like Jack is sort of like a person who's like all talk, no show, and so he's like, oh, we gotta get food. But when it comes, like, when push comes to shove, then he's actually in the situation. Like the pig, he was staring at the pig for like 5 seconds, and then the pig ran loose. I was like, that was your opportunity for food, and you didn't get it. So I feel like Jack is sort of like that person who's all talk, but when the pressure gets on him, he sort of like backs out.
I just think all the boys right now are probably like half of them are scared, so I'm pretty sure he was just, it could be that, or it could be that he was like scared and he's never actually had to sit there and kill something before in front of all these boys to prove something, because boys in school usually prove something in a different way than killing an animal. So I think maybe it was just he was scared, and I bet he felt embarrassed afterwards, not being able to catch the food for the boys.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Hold your thoughts. Did somebody ask him to kill the pig?
No.
No.
It was,
So he was scared to do what? And
He
that's
pulled out his knife, but then
Like
he just never stopped. He was like
He was
this.
just
You cut
holding
the-
it like
I'm sorry, who was?
Jack.
Jack. He was
Jack.
just holding it there like
Oh, we're
while
talking
Peggy
about
was-
Jack, not Ralph. Okay,
No.
okay, okay. All right, thank you. Now, I just want to mention we talked about power symbol and so forth. Are there any themes that any of you want to talk about? That's another thing that happens in exposition. You start establishing themes. Now, power is one theme. What are some other ones? And then how does he develop them? Alice?
I think it's also about loyalty, but not in the way that like you're loyal to your leader, but like it's more loyalty to what will give you the best outcome. Because right now I feel like seeing Piggy getting to know all the boys, I feel like he's gonna pull power from both of the other boys, Jack and Ralph, because like they're gonna be more loyal to him because Piggy gets down to their level and gets to know them as a person, not as just an it's another one of the boys that I'm now leader of, like Ralph and Jack.
So you're seeing a power struggle three-way develop, a triangle. Piggy from underneath and the other two titans.
Yeah.
And Piggy you think is gonna come out on top in the end. That's
I don't
very
know. I don't know who's gonna come out on top, but I have a feeling it's probably gonna be Piggy's one of the people who might.
interesting, interesting. Okay. I would sort of just challenge or at least qualify that that's still a power struggle. So can we talk about other themes that are completely unrelated to power? There's one major one that should be in this conversation. I'm sorry, Megan's hand was first.
Try, but I don't know if I'm correct.
It's always okay.
I think one of the themes is separation or kind of segregation, because as you can see, like the group is kind of splitting. You can tell like there's a split, like there's a crack in between the groups. They don't want to come together, and I think that's going to be a theme. And then I think towards the end they're going to finally start working together to complete what they need to, like to survive. So I thought that was a theme in the story.
I think one more thing that may be included in this novel is the fact of common sense.
Speak up.
The fact of common sense. Like Piggy first wanted to call all the survivors who survived the crash or whatever happened together, and that was a sense of his good common sense and his prioritizing kind of, because he wants to like help all the survivors but still like form a group where they can actually survive. So.
I'm sorry. Now I'm playing teacher. We've just had three, those of you on the outside, Lolly, and I'm not picking on you, I'm asking you to, and be prepared because I'm going to do it to all of you. Actually, Alex, your notebook's closed, that's why I'm picking on you. Oh no, Lolly, your notebook's closed too, that's why I'll pick on you instead. I was trying to be nice to you. Oh no, hell no. What were the themes that were just, when I asked for more themes, what answers did we hear?
Well, we kind of heard power again, and then we kind of heard, well, I don't know, I think you were kind of going at, I'm not really sure what to call it, but it was kind of a theme, I don't really know what to call that theme.
Paraphrase it.
It was kind of like what to do in a situation, like what the what the best outcome kind of is. They were kind of talking about how Piggy kind of had that in him. I didn't really understand what kind of a theme that was.
Okay.
Because I guess you didn't have time to finish it.
Okay. Yeah, what other ones?
Megan said about separation between the two groups.
Thank you. Okay, now, how many of those were actual themes? And how many of those were only topics? Those of you who said it, did you say it? Like loyalty was one. I think we see the theme of loyalty. I think that was Alice. Was that you, Alice? Okay, is loyalty a theme, Alice? It's a topic. So what theme do you see developing about loyalty? This book seems to be showing that loyalty is. Guys, this is the training that I said open your notebook for. When I ask you for a theme, you make sure it's a sentence, not a noun. A noun is a topic. Loyalty is, this novel seems to be sort of showing or demonstrating or questioning something, focusing on is loyalty, or loyalty is something. So loyalty is.
Loyalty can be beneficial or destructive depending on.
Okay, good enough. Good enough. Loyalty can be dangerous. Can loyalty is loyalty sometimes dangerous? That sort of thing, right? So separation. What theme are you trying to get at?
Separation can sometimes lead you in the wrong direction.
Separation can sometimes lead you in the wrong direction. That's a little fuzzy. Can you
Or
do in this story? What?
Separation can cause conflicts between two.
Okay. All right. I want you to realize that I would want something sharper than that when you're talking about what you think a theme is driving at in the story when you see it start developing. I want it clearer. Right now the focus is a little blurry.
Can we try out
I'm sorry. Were there any others here?
the common sense?
Common sense. What is the thing going? Because you still haven't hit what this guy who's read longer than you three combined, and has been reading longer than you two combined, like seriously reading instead of just doing it because it was homework in high school, and all that. I mean, who cared? You still haven't hit the major theme in this novel. Annie had her hand up earlier, and I interrupted, and then Jalen, I had to look at your hair. But that's all right because I gave birth to you. That's your mom's quote, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to let Annie field this one. Annie.
Well, I'm not really sure how to turn it into a theme, but the topic of survival. Maybe it's also intelligence comes before strength. Like to survive, maybe brains over brawn.
I think something that might come out more later in the book is like human nature and what they do when they're faced with survival, like food.
Hold on a second. Annie's was too short. Thank you for playing, Annie. Survival, not sure how to make it a theme, but it moved the conversation forward, so that's good. There's certainly something there. And then I have to take notes on this stuff, that's why. And then it went from that to
Survival.
Brain over brawn. It was like brains over brawn. Yeah.
do any of you feel like, wow, nobody's still hit it?
Oh, does it have to do with the absence of any female presence on the island? 'Cause I feel like that's actually a really important element.
Brains and brawn. And then Chloe said,
Human nature.
where's Chloe? We're 21 comments in now. Human theme, human nature. Chloe, that's not a theme.
Like
That's a
what
topic.
human nature will drive people to do when faced with survival.
Okay. Isn't human nature always faced with survival?
Like when faced with
Aren't I faced with survival right now because I do this in order to buy food? We're always faced with survival. If we ignore the challenges of survival, we die. So, laugh again while looking at the ceiling. She's so funny today. Javon.
Maybe like, I don't know, but this is a guess. Maybe establishing sort of like a civilization without adults, because I know like they were looking for adults early on in the book, and now they have to fend for themselves, and so they're faced with kind of like to become more mature or decide sort of like the leadership balance of like who what to do without really any adults around,
Okay.
because they realize like there's no adults and they
Now,
have to-
good. Notice what just happened. Naharika just went, okay, we're still not seeing it as clearly, but we're getting very close and things are getting interesting. I want you to go wherever you want to go. Now, those of you on the outside, if they don't go there, you're going to have, in 3 or 4 minutes, you're going to have the table, and you can take it places that you can't believe they did. Go!
Wouldn't the absence of adults,
Speak up, woman.
wouldn't the trying to form not like a civilization, like it wouldn't be a civilization, not
It was
really,
really like
but
the wrong word.
Don't interrupt!
but it's like basic survival instead of surviving in like what their school or wherever they came from, because we still don't know that yet. But I feel like it could be sort of referring back to what humans were like before civilizations existed.
Okay, at this point, thank you. Vacate your seats and take your everything with you, and those of you on the outside go on the inside.
Fine, I'm on the other side. You don't want to
No, I started. I haven't timed out.
Hello. I am.
Go. Now, the last thing that Alice said, you can take or leave. Does it have to do with what? Civilization or?
Like what humans were like before civilization.
Okay.
I think one of the themes of this story, at least so far, I mean, it might change in the future, is how these boys are basically living, are basically creating a community, as to use Alice's words, with basically only male instincts. Like, there's no female instincts there, obviously, which can also, like, it's very different when there's a combination rather than just only one, and I think that'll be a problem, because I think that Jack is the kind of person who seeks revenge. Like, I think he will want to perhaps put Ralph down in some way, or maybe to purposely do something to make his, maybe his power, like, go away, maybe make him seem untrustworthy or something like that. And I think that will possibly be a kind of
I agree with Naharka about the point where about the male species part, because eventually everyone's gonna die, and because reasons. But however, the part where you said things about Jack and how he has the power to overthrow Rolf, I thought differently, because I thought Jack was more of a typical boy. He's older, so he is cocky. He's very cocky, and he tries to act cool and mature. But then, like, inside, he's still I feel he's very innocent, because he tries to take charge with Rolf. He stands out, and then he tells him to do this, do that, but then he calls his bands hunters, and I felt he was too scared to kill the pig. It's not because he was hesitating, but I think he was scared, and I feel he is very innocent inside, and that he's going to be very loyal to this gang thing. I'm just guessing though.
I don't really necessarily agree with the fact about.
Speak up.
Okay, yes, that there are only men, and that could be could be a theme, but I do feel like the bigger theme might be how they're gonna cope with this and how they're gonna try and survive, because and how, depending on what they find out about why they're there. I think it kind of goes on to that. Maybe there's a reason they're there, and maybe that becomes the theme and the what they need to do to survive. I think that's more the theme. I don't think it's that much of a feminism thing. I think that could be a little, because I feel like, yeah.
I hate to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt because I'm teaching through interrupting. And you know what? I'm sure that half of you are like, I wish you would stop. But I could just stand up and lecture at you, but instead I'm throwing things in that if I were lecturing, I would be just telling you. Instead I'm giving you I'm fishing for it. Can you take the bait? Why are they on this island? Back to setting, meaning time, specific what is happening at this time. He has given clues. I know why they're there. Who else does? I want to see if anybody in the room does. I'm sorry, inside. So Soma?
Oh.
I'm sorry, no. Lale, you were first.
Yeah, it was there was you know that they crashed and that they're there because it's gonna be a little unclear to me. I think it could.
It's
be
very important because by the end of chapter 1, you should know this thing that has happened, which is why they are there in this setting and what is happening in terms of time. Somo, can you answer it?
I also think that a plane crashed because in the first 16 pages there were mentions about a pilot and something. I think they may have been kidnapped because they're still in school uniforms. And I think there's a reference that the pilot spoke about some atom bomb or something. So I think that's probably what happened.
Okay, so, well, say more clearly why you think they're there.
Okay, to start with, they're in school uniforms, which means it was probably unexpected because a school just doesn't just go to a wild island.
Right, we know that. So why are they there?
Because someone kidnapped them and took them off in a plane and the plane crashed or something like that.
Okay. Does anybody think they understand or have a different understanding? Lisa?
It could be an
Of course, maybe this, maybe that. Just get...
experiment from a person. So they purposely take this group of boys, only specifically boys.
Okay, all right.
Purposely crash the plane.
Okay. Lisa, you're being an alien right now. Okay. Now I'm going back to your speech, right? I'm going back to your who am I speech, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was a joke. I'm playing. But who thinks? I know this. I know what's happened to you. Who hasn't read it?
Like that all
Jamie.
In the book, in one of the pages, it talks about an atomic bomb or an atom bomb, and I think that a war must have been going on, and that they were being rushed out of like a country, maybe the start of World War I or World War II, and then like maybe their parents are dead and they've been rushed out of a country really quickly. That's why they're still in their school uniforms, and then they were shot down during the war.
When Piggy said something about Ralph saying they'll find us, and Piggy said, no, they won't. Because
they all died in the.
Because they're all dead.
Because the atom bomb.
Because the atom bomb. Now, notice, I interrupted you for a very important reason. If you don't get this, you don't get what you're reading at all. This is huge. When was the first atom bomb dropped? 1945, World War II. Look at when this novel was written, please. I don't know, I'm asking you.
1954.
1954. Do you think it took him like a week to write this novel? Probably took him a good number of years. How had the world just changed? Suddenly there was one bomb that was not like a hand grenade and was not like an artillery shell that comes out of a cannon filled with gunpowder. And yeah, it can blow up a building. No, now there is a bomb that can kill hundreds of thousands of people and make a huge mushroom cloud that blinds you if you look at it. That killed literally, well, today if they were to drop one atomic bomb on Singapore, we would all die with that one bomb, and we would be turned to ash. And that is what happened to the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. Starting the Cold War, starting the nuclear terror that, good God in heaven, humans have just created technology going back to our thumbs. This is deep. If you're not immature, you're with me and you're going, this is effing interesting. I talked about us being able to make fire with our thumbs. You thought I was kidding? Look what we made with our thumbs in World War II. It killed 500,000 people. 2 bombs. 2 bombs. 500,000. Singapore is 5 million people. 10 bombs could wipe out all of us. In fact, no, this is elementary bombs. 1 could now, because since then, other countries started, the Russians got it, Soviet Union, the communists got it, and America, and then started building more and more and more. By the time I was born, 10 years after this was published, the terror went further with the Cuban Missile Crisis. So who knows about the Cuban Missile Crisis? If you don't know about it, I was born in May, and this was in October. And so when I was 6 months old, my parents were terrified, along with the rest of the world, seriously, Allison, that Russia and the United States were going to start launching nuclear bombs, atomic bombs, on intercontinental missiles, rockets that could take it from America to across the Atlantic and wipe out all the cities in Russia, and that Russia was going to intercontinental ballistic nuclear missiles. And the fear was that life would stop. A nuclear winter would start because we had become too dangerous with our thumbs and our irrational animal instincts and our power hunger. So this is all about that. My question is he saying that America and Russia have done it, what we all feared? We don't know the answer. It's a question. It's a real question. I'm not asking you for the right answer here. I'm saying, what is he wanting us to imagine here? Because we have entered the nuclear age, and this is the first novel of the nuclear age, Atomic Bombs. And so that should help you think a lot more interesting thoughts about theme. What is this novel getting at here? And you've thought about theme well, you've hit some good stuff, but it gets a lot deeper if you just think about what I just threw into this mix. Can you open that side? It's the most absurd part of my daily life, dealing with a ceiling that whistles. Okay, back to you. You've talked about theme maybe enough. How about other things, characters, actions, the setting itself, which by the way deserves a lot more talk.
I was thinking about Ralph, and I was wondering if he actually wanted power or not, and whether the power was not necessarily what he wanted, and more people following him, I guess, and thinking that he's good. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm not sure that he actually wants the power.
Yeah,
non-voluntary.
And yeah, I think he
Involuntary.
just wanted to be recognized. Like, you know how Jake and Ralph and then the other boy, they said Jake and Ralph, and then three boys went hunting. So then he's like, well, what about me? He kept kind of persisting, like, I want to come too. And he's like, no, you just stay here and do whatever you're doing. And I think he kind of, all he wants, he doesn't necessarily want the power, the head power. I think he kind of just wants recognition and given a job to do. Like, he wants to have a large contribution, but not as big as necessarily running and being a chief.
We're talking about Piggy?
Oh, yes, Piggy.
No, I was talking about Ralph.
Oh, you were talking about Ralph.
Yeah, I was talking about Piggy.
And you were talking about Ralph and what?
Who?
Hell.
Oh, Naharika was talking about how Ralph didn't necessarily want power, it was involuntary.
Oh, so you were both talking about Ralph.
No, I was talking about Piggy and how he doesn't really want power.
He just wants to
and
serve,
recognition.
like he wants to be second in command, sort of.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I kind of said this yesterday, how I feel like Piggy is going into like the puppet master state and going to start becoming the real mastermind of the whole organization, kind of. But another thing came up during the discussion before was that maybe Piggy will forget about Ralph for his attitude of cockiness and all, and kind of switch onto Jack's side and start rising steady power uprising.
Well, I think whoever has the shell really has the power, because when Ralph blew the shell, everyone started coming, and then when the little 6-year-olds and kids younger saw him blowing this thing that they didn't know what it was, they think it's so cool and everything that they'll follow this guy as long as he has this. And then when they had a vote, and it was for the chief, and it was Jack or Ralph, all the little kids who saw Ralph blow the shell all voted for Ralph, I think, because he was the one holding the shell. and Jack didn't have anything.
I agree with Colin. I think that the conch is like a symbol for power because like Ralph gets the conch, so basically when he blows the conch he's kind of like summoning people to him because he's a leader. Also when they're voting for the chief, they're talking over here about whether Piggy, Jack or Ralph should be the leader. So he says, but there was a stillness about Ralph as he sat that marked him out. There was his size and attractive appearance. And most obscurely, yet most powerfully, there was the conch. So I think the conch is a symbol for power throughout this book.
Yeah, and I kind of want to establish that that's, by this point, pretty clear. The conch is a symbol for power. And I want to push you and Fish again by throwing out some things like motifs. What actions have we seen repeated at least twice, different characters doing it?
Asking of the names. Because once all the kids come, Piggy starts asking them all the names. But Ralph still hasn't asked Piggy what his real name is. Piggy had to tell Ralph what he liked to be called.
And all of you, I want notes in here because I'm trying to get you, we're going to keep talking about this. So even if you don't get to talk right now, if you have just a list of things and maybe a notation way to like go, these are the things that Mr. Burrell's trying to get people to see, but he's not telling them, right? They're there. Setting. Setting is way more interesting than you've made it so far. Right now you're just talking about an island. So you know what? The author has been very careful to make that island a very, very interesting setting by making it a complicated setting, not a simple island. Second, how about this motif? Colors. There are certain colors repeated in this thing, and those colors are, the repetition of colors are connected to actions, and it's a motif as well. What's the colors, and what are they symbolizing? Third, clothing and its absence. Clothing, being clothed and being naked. Because notice, we've seen nudity in this novel. There are naked boys in this novel. And the author is doing some incredibly, incredibly, incredibly interesting stuff when he talks about clothing and nakedness. And they all point towards things that are much deeper than you've gone yet. And I haven't told you anything about what they mean. I just asked you to please start letting yourself think about them. Because then it becomes more, again, this more interesting. I take it back to you. Because the conch is power, let's leave the conch.
Another thing I noticed is Piggy is kind of angry at Ralph because
Speak up.
When it was only those two, Piggy and Ralph, he really didn't want Ralph telling anybody else if they found anybody his name. But then later on, when they all started calling him Fatty, Piggy said Ralph said his real name was actually Piggy, and then I feel like Piggy got he got angrier at Ralph because after he took away kind of the conch and he kind of took away his power, then he kind of started to go against.
Maybe that can be one of the reasons.
Speak up.
Maybe that can be one of the reasons where I'm predicting where Piggy goes on to Jack's side, or maybe like I think it was Alice that said it. Start making his own rise of power from connections towards the little ones, like the commoners, I guess.
Yeah.
But one thing that I got really hooked on is when in the last discussion it said people wanted to get power because it was a symbol of hope that they might get. But I feel like because they're so confused from what happened and so scared, why would anyone even try to get the power? I feel like it would be easier if they gave the power to someone else, so they didn't have to be confused and worried anymore. But when you have the power, you always have to make the decision, and you
you get confused more?
I don't know if it's more about the easiness. I think also responsibility, because we're talking about like so many kids and the age group too. Because if Jack's the oldest and there's also 6-year-olds and everything, there's a bunch of age groups. And if someone eventually finds them and people are gone and people have died, the blame will probably go to the leader during that time.
I actually agree with Alex, but I think it's mainly based on the character itself and what they think they should do. Because I think that like Jack is probably the one, since he's the oldest one, he's probably the one, like Naharka said, the one that wants responsibilities. But I'm confused about why Ralph would want to have a responsibility, because it doesn't really seem like because since he's younger, it doesn't really seem like something he would do.
Jack and Ralph right now are like, as we know, they probably have the most dominant power of all the kids there. But when you look at both of them closely, it's very different types of power. Jack is more like intellectually smart, he knows what he's doing, while Ralph comes off as a more physically appearing stronger type of power. And I think one of them eventually throughout the story will become more powerful than the other. And then seeing how much younger the other kids are, they'll follow along with whoever becomes more of the leader. So if Jack becomes the leader, the group will become more intellectual thinking and they'll start actually thinking about what's going on. Rather, if Ralph becomes in more power, they'll become more physically they'll choose things more physically rather than actually thinking about them.
I disagree. I think Piggy actually is going to rise and have all the power, because when Jack, Simon, and Ralph are all out hunting, Piggy is left with all the other people behind. And then he's asking them their names and getting to know them. But Jack, Simon, and Ralph are out doing their own things. So Piggy could be convincing them that he's the one who should be leading them all.
I agree with Colin. Even if it's not Piggy who wants to become the leader, maybe the other people, just the normal people, might try to bring Piggy to the power, because Piggy seems to be more nice and kind.
Okay.
If
No,
I-
sorry. Hate me. It's okay. If you still hate me after listening to why I stopped you, seriously, it's your problem. I've got to close chapter 1 with some things, and so I'm gonna. Nobody took the bait. Anybody on the outside want to take it? Colors? You didn't. Colors, or the island, or the atomic thing, or nakedness and clothing. And clothing is particularly both of them. So.
For the colors, they talked about pink rocks and like the pink trail, and so maybe it's a sign of hope or something to reach for.
I'm going to ask you to revisit when he talks about that pink. Let's remember right now, when he talks about pink, what is it connected to? I can think of 2 different objects that pink is connected to, and one of them is really complex.
Women.
When was pink connected to women?
Just
First
when
pink
you have a
center.
baby, you wrap it in a
No, in the novel, what the writer did. When did pink become?
The pink trail and the pink rocks.
The pink trail, the pink rocks?
Oh,
The pink sky.
Oh, the meaning.
The freaking conch, man. The shell.
Oh.
He talks about that shell in pink, fleshly colors. Lips, he talks about. There were lips. And then he talks about certain characters who have like pink skin and such. And it's very pink and flesh. Pink and human flesh. And it starts even, reread it, it's really interesting. What other color is repeated many times in the novel? We're talking about the novel here, that's why I'm not talking. Yeah, what?
Okay, the flesh could be related to their absence of clothing.
Pink. When we're wearing clothes, our flesh is pink because, right? Because we're wearing clothes. Now, let's talk about clothes, and let's also talk about, I'm sorry, really? Nobody noticed? Come on, smart kids. Another color besides pink? There's one other important color going on here. Alice.
Isn't it a blue that we always see at the ocean?
Blue is in there a lot, and it's typically water, but there's another color. And who said it? Did you say it? And so when do we see green show up, and what does it connect to?
Forest.
Nature.
The forest. Okay. And so we see these pink-skinned boys. Green. What does green symbolize? Blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm not going to tell you. Another thing. What's up with the nudity, and why is that interesting? And then, do they stay nude? When they take off their clothes, do they just keep them off? You're not reading as carefully as I am.
No,
I have not
Ralph-
read this either.
Ralph didn't
Ralph
ever.
Ralph did take off his clothes. He was
Yeah.
naked
Went
for a while.
swimming.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, but did he ever put them back on?
Yeah.
Who has put their clothes back on?
Piggy.
Ralph put his clothes back
Yeah,
on
Ralph
too.
did.
Yeah.
And Ralph, in the interior monologue or whatever, the inner state, we saw that when Ralph put it on, there was something strangely pleasant about putting a shirt back on. Ralph reacted to how it feels to like have clothes on again. Now, the author is not going to put this in here if he's not playing with the theme. What is the theme here about nakedness and being clothed? And by the way, what clothes details? I'm trying to show you how to read like a freaking smart adult. What kind of clothes were they wearing in the first place? It matters. School uniforms. And what does a school uniform do to this whole idea of clothes and the motif and what it means? A military? Maybe. Okay, let's go to the color green. The color green connects to what? The forest. And what does the forest symbolize?
Like shelter.
Shelter?
What's happened to them?
I don't think they're like going, hey, let's go sleep in the, it's not a forest, by the way. It seems to be more like a jungle. Kind of a scary place.
It's like irritation because all the.
And so, what does it represent?
Vicious, it's dangerous.
Vicious, dangerous, wild, savage, naked, living in a jungle. What is not in this setting?
Discipline.
How about civilization? These are civilized, educated, modern people in the age of airplanes suddenly being thrown back as you danced around, and Chloe, I think, danced closest to it, being thrown back to a state of savagery. There's no government, there are no adults, there's nothing. We are reinventing civilization. We're going from savage, these boys are being thrown into a savage situation, and they're creating civilization all over again.
Without adults.
Huh?
Without adults.
Without adults. And so here we are. Human nature, you bet. Clothing. Civilized people wear clothing. Savages don't. Is savagery bad? Is human nature bad? All sorts of stuff is happening here. We don't know. But these are some questions. Now, read, let me,
Chapter 2.
how long is chapter 2?
Pretty long.
Yeah, let's read chapter 2. Okay.
Wait, so there's
Yeah, and I will, I mean, really, guys, we will continue seminaring, and next week it matters. So, listen to me. You don't want to not read for the next week's seminar on chapter 2, because that's when it's going to start counting for a bigger part of your grade. These are the things that will take you far. Green will keep coming up, I promise you. Blue will keep coming up. Don't get assassinated. Is assassination over?
yeah, it's over. I think that one's so much better. And at lunch.
Hey,
This too.
Gabby.
That's French. You can give it back now.
This as well. No, that's very delicate. Please don't. Feathers are already starting to